What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel where today we'll be working on the 2013 Fiat 500 Abarth project. Now this is a project that I haven't worked on in a few months, and I'll give you a little bit of recap just in case you're not familiar with it. But before we get to that, if you enjoy watching people with a real hoopty car collection that make repairs to their own cars, all while wearing dirty clothes and staying in the budget, be sure to click that subscribe button so you can follow along with everything that I do. Now I bought this thing at the local salvage auction back in November of 2020, right around the time I had the shoulder injury that pretty much rendered me useless for 2 months. Now I'd managed to straighten out the radiator support, replace the radiator and the AC condenser, and get this thing on the road so I could do a test drive. After that, due to time constraints, travel, weather, and parts availability, this project pretty much just sat at idle like most of my projects. That is until today, and since we have warmer weather, we can finally do something that we needed to do since we've replaced the AC condenser, and that is charge the AC system. Now most people would consult a professional when it comes to something like this, but with my experience, this is something I can definitely do on my own. And that's just what I'm going to do today, so let's get it started. So finally we have a nice warm day. It's springtime finally. I've been waiting for months for this. And that means we can get out here and start doing some body work on some of these projects and getting some paint work done. But another thing that we need to get done, and that you usually have to wait for it to get warm for, is AC work. And if you see here, I've got a vacuum pump and I've got a set of AC gauges. And if you remember, when we had the collision on the front of the Fiat here, we had to replace the AC condenser. So that means we need to recharge the system. Now, initially from the collision, all the Freon had leaked out, so we didn't have to reclaim it or put a vacuum on it, but that's what we're going to have to do today. We're going to pull a vacuum for around 30 to 45 minutes, make sure everything is nice and sealed up, we don't have any kind of leaks or leak downs, and then we're going to fill this thing up with Freon. Now I'm about ready to hook up the AC gauges, and to do that you're going to need to remove the air box. And as you can see, I got it laying there on the ground. All you really need is a flathead screwdriver to undo your connection here and to undo your connection here. And the reason you got to do that is you need to get to your low side port, which is right here on top of the AC compressor in the back, and your high side is here in the fender well. So we'll hook the gauges up, and then we'll hook our vacuum pump up, hook the air up, and pull a vacuum. The gauges are all hooked up like they should. As you see here, we have our high side, we have our low side line back here on the AC compressor, and in the middle we have our vacuum pump. Now how this vacuum pump works is you hook an air hose up right here, go into a compressor, and this creates a vacuum. And what it does is it draws down the system. Now if you look up here at the gauges, we are at 0 on both sides, which is to be expected because of course we don't have any Freon in there. But once we hook up this vacuum pump, you'll notice a vacuum on the gauges, mostly over here on the low side. You'll notice a vacuum, and you'll pull a vacuum for, I like to do it around 30 to 45 minutes. It's about 75 degrees out here. And what that'll allow us to do, it'll actually allow us to check the system, because you'll draw the vacuum and close the valve. And if the vacuum holds, we'll let it sit for 10-15 minutes and see if it leaks down any, and that'll let us know if our system might potentially have a problem. If we have any kind of leaks, it'll definitely go back towards 0, which is atmospheric pressure. So we're going to go ahead and hook up that air line and start the vacuum process. So now that we're pulling a vacuum, you look up here at our gauges, they're still at 0. We're going to go ahead and open these valves so we can start pulling the system down. And if you look right there, you can see we're actually drawing a vacuum. And I like to do it from both sides. And there you can see the needles pulling it down, pulling it down, pulling it down. And this will get all of the moisture out of the system. Anything that might be in there, it needs to be drawn out. So you don't have any kind of moisture in your system that'll cause you problems. And this will guarantee that you have a good charge to your AC. Now we just kind of need to wait for 30 to 45 minutes and draw it down, and then we'll shut these valves and see if we have any leaks. So I pulled a vacuum for about 35 minutes, and this is what we're looking at now. We've got a vacuum, we've got our valve shut, so we need to watch these needles and make sure they don't move up and go back to atmospheric pressure or closer to atmospheric pressure. If that happens, that will show us that we do have a leak in the system. Now, we shouldn't have really any kind of leaks in the system, except for maybe right there, the 2 hose connections that went into the AC compressor, because really that's the only thing in the entire system we messed with. So we'll let this sit and watch for a leak down, and if everything's good, we'll proceed to going ahead and adding in the Freon. Now, I've already went ahead and started adding some of the Freon, but the main thing you need to do is you need to make sure you have the right amount. And if you look right here on the sticker, it says 482 grams. Now, how you measure that out is you take your can of Freon, as you see here. Now, this is 12 ounces. It says it's 341 grams in there. And I've got a little scale here, and you weigh out your can there. This says 452. But we're going to need to add this valve on there that's going to add some weight. And with the valve on, you see we have 610. Now, that's going to account for the valve and the weight of the can. So I'm guessing there's roughly about, with 12 ounces, there should be roughly around maybe 300 grams in this can. And obviously, you need to start the car, turn all your AC on wide open. And basically, we need to shut this valve here, which will poke a hole in the can, and start releasing the Freon, and then we'll open up our low side here and let it go on the low side. You do not want to add to the high side. This is very high pressure. You always want to add to the low side. So we'll do that, and you can see I've already got a little bit of a charge, but I think we've got another can and a half to go. As you can see, the Freon's going in, our pressure's going up there. If you look right here, you can gradually watch this go down. Now, I really need to turn this can upside down to get a better charge. So what it's going to do, it's going to draw in real slow, and we'll just keep working it, and then we'll keep checking it on the scale, see how far down it goes. So now I've got the AC all charged up, and I really wanted to show you guys what was going on, but had a little technical difficulty here, and well, let's just say my low side valve ended up taking a dump. It's been causing me problems for a while on the past few charges I made. We got the correct amount of Freon in. It's roughly close to 500 grams. It says 480 here. It says 500 in the service manual. So it's somewhere in between there. It's pretty close. It's really hard to do it exactly with the scale, but you can get it pretty close. So this thing's blowing nice and cold. So we got this taken care of. We need to get the airbox back on and then move on to the next task. With this AC repair complete and warmer weather setting in, we can move on to the paint and body stage, which is exactly what we'll start on in the next video. And I'd like to say thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed to this channel, be sure you click that subscribe button, click the bell so you'll get the notifications, and you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram.